We continue now at the top of Daf Yud from Beis and Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf 11b. The Gemara is continuing to darshan the Pesukim at the beginning of Parsha Shemos with regards to the slavery of the Jews in Mitzrayim. It says in the pasuk Beforech, Rebbe Elazar Amar, Rebbe Elazar says, what does it mean that they worked to the Jews, that they enslaved them Beforech? It means Beperach, it means with a soft mouth. Rashi says that means Beporech, Beperach, Moshchum Bidvorim, meaning they convinced them into slavery by using words, Uvischar, and they paid them at the beginning, Ad Shehir Gilam Lavod, until they became accustomed to doing the work, and that's how they enslaved them. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, no, Befricha, the word Befarach means it was broken, they did hard work, hard labor. Rashi says, Befricha, Beshivron Guf, it broke their body, Umasnaim Vechazaka, it was work that took a lot of strength. That's what it means, Befarach. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk goes on to say, Vayemaru es chayehem ba'avoda kasha b'chomer uvilvenim, they made their lives bitter with the difficult work. Amar Rava says, Bitchila b'chomer uvilvenim, originally it was with the mortar and the bricks, ulevasof, but at the end, uvechol avoda basada, they were doing all kinds of work in the field. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Es kol avodasam asher avdu behem befarech. Rashi here has a different girsa. Rashi's girsa is ba'avoda kasha. We're darshaning the pasuk of ba'avoda kasha, but in any case, the Gemara darshans the pasuk and says, Amar Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonasan. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani says that Rabbi Yonasan says, what does it mean ba'avoda kasha? What was the nature of this hard work? Shayu machlifin meleches anoshim lenashim, or meleches nashim lanashim, that they would switch around the work so that the work that is normally done by men they would give to the women, and the work that is normally done by the women they would give to the men. And the Gemara continues, and according to the one who said before that befarach means beperach, but over here with this kind of work, when you're switching the labor of the men to the women and vice versa, vadai befricha, that definitely is a difficult kind of work. And Rashi explains, according to the one who says that the first time it says beperach in the pasuk, it means beperach, hai beperach basra, but when it says it already the later time, vadai pricha, that for sure means difficult work, because it says that they made their lives bitter. So clearly that is referring to difficult work. And to clarify which two psukim Rashi is referring to, the first pasuk is pasuk Yud Gimel. This is Perek Aleph of Shemos. It says Vayavidu Mitzrayim es bnei Yisrael befarach. That's the first befarach. And then the second pasuk, that's where it says the very next pasuk is pasuk Yud Daled Vayemoru es chayim ba'avoda kasha b'chomer uvilvenim uv'chol avoda ba'asada es kol avodasam asher avdu b'hem befarach. That is the second befarach. And the Gemara continues, Dorish Rav Avira darshins b'schar noshim tzidkanius shahayu boso hador, as a reward for the righteous women in that generation, Negalu Yisrael mitzrayim. So Klal Yisrael was redeemed from Mitzrayim. B'shah shaholchos lishov mayim, at the time that they were going to draw water, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mizamin lehem dogim ketanim b'chadein, b'shah avos mechza mayim u'mechza dogim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu would make it that there would be small fish that would go into their jugs, and they would be able to draw up, half of it was water and half of it was fish. Uvos v'shovso shtei kedeiros, acha shel chamin v'acha shel dogim, and they would set up two pots, one would be of hot water and one would be of the fish. Umolichos eitzel ba'alein, and these women, they would take this to their husbands, l'sada, to the field, umarchitzos osan, and they would bathe them, v'sachos osan, and anoint them, umachilos osan, umashkos osan, and give them food and give them drink, v'nizkakos lahen bein shafatoyim, and they would bond with them, they would have relations with them between the borders of the field. Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk, im tishkavun bein shvatayim v'gomer. This is a pasuk from Tehillim, which speaks of lying among the sheepfolds between the borders of the fields. And the Gemara explains, Bischar tishkavun bein shvatayim is a reward for laying with their husbands between the borders of the fields. Zachu Yisrael levizas Mitzrayim. That's why Klal Yisrael merited the spoils of Mitzrayim. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, and this is a continuation from the same pasuk in Tehillim. Kanfe Yona nechba bekesev avroseh b'yirakar choretz. It's talking about the wings of a dove that they're coated with silver and gold, and that's a reference to Klal Yisrael. That's a reference to the bizas Mitzrayim which they took. And the Gemara continues, V'kevan shemisabros, and when they became pregnant, Bos levatayim, they came to their houses. V'kevan shemagias man moldein, and when the time came to give birth, holchos v'yoldos besada tachas hatapuach, they went out and they gave birth in the field under the apple tree. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, tachas hatapuach or articha, underneath the apple tree I awakened you. And the Gemara continues, V'akadosh Baruch Hu sholeach mishmei moram, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent a messenger from Shamayim, mi shemenakir meshaper osan kechai azu shemeshaferes asavlad, an angel that would clean and prepare the baby like a midwife that prepares the baby. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, and this is a pasuk from Yechezkel, Moldosayich biyom huledes osach lochoras sharech uvemaim lorachatz lemishi, which means on the day you were born, your umbilical cord wasn't cut and you weren't bathed. meaning to say there were no midwives around, and it was taken care of by a malach, by an angel. Umalakid len shnei igulin, and this angel would collect 2 round stones, echad shel shemen ve'echad shel dvash. One had oil and one had honey for the baby. Shenemar, like it says, vayinikeu dvash misela v'shemen v'gomer. It says he would suckle the honey and the oil from the rocks. V'kevan shemakir and behen Mitzrayim, and once Mitzrayim recognized what was going on, that these children were born, boin lahargan, they came to kill them. V'nasir lahem nes, and a miracle happened. V'nivloin bekarkan, they were absorbed into the earth. Umevian shavarim, and so they brought oxen, v'chorshen al gaban, and they plowed on top of them. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, this is a pasuk from Tehillim, al gabi chorshu chorshem, above me, they were plowing. La'achar shaholicha, and then after they left, after these oxen left, hayum evatzvesen v'yotzen case of asad, these children would spring up like the grasses of the field. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, pasuk from Yechezkel Revava, ketzemach asad nisatich, talks about the fact that they were like the tzemach asad, they grew like the grasses of the field. V'kevan shemiskadlin, and when they grew up, boin adorim levatein, they came in flocks to their houses. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, and this is also pasuk, the same pasuk from Yechezkel. It says vatirbi vatigdali vatavoi ba'adei adoyim. So it says adei adoyim, and the Gemara darshans that to mean al tikri ba'adei adoyim. Don't read it as ba'adei adoyim, which means beauty, ela ba'adrei adorim. Rather, you should read it as adrei adorim. They came in flocks. And the Gemara continues, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself on the sea, Heim hikiru tchila, was these children that recognized HaKadosh Baruch Hu first. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ze keli v'anveyu, this is my God, and I will glorify him. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Vayomer melech Mitzrayim lamiyaldos v'ivrios, and the king of Mitzrayim said to the midwives, Ravu Shmuel to Machlokas Rav and Shmuel Chad Amar Isho Vita. One says that the midwives were the mother and her daughter. The Chad Amar Kala v'chamos, and the other one says it was actually a daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law. And the Gemara elaborates, Man Damar Isho Vita, the one who's saying that it's a mother and daughter, Yocheved Miriam. That means to say that the midwives were Yocheved and her daughter Miriam. Uman Damar Kala v'chamos, and the one who says the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law, so it's Yocheved v'Elisheva, it's Yocheved and her daughter-in-law Elisheva. Tanya Kamand Amar Ishu Vita, the Gemara says we have a brisa that supports the opinion that it was a mother-daughter. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, Shifra. Who is Shifra? Zu Yocheved, that refers to Yocheved, V'lam and Nikra Shema Shifra. And why was she called Shifra? Shemeshaferes Asavlad, because she prepared the baby. And the Gemara continues, Davar Acher, another explanation, Shifra, why was she called Shifra? Sheparu V'ravu Yisrael B'yamed, that the Jewish people, they increased and multiplied during her lifetime. And Pua, who is Pua, Zu Miriam, that refers to Miriam. V'lama nikra shema Pua, why was she called Pua? Shaisa Pua motzia savlat, she would make sounds of comfort when she helped the baby come out. Davaracher, another explanation, Pua, why is she called Pua? Shaisa Poa Baruch HaKodesh, she would speak with Ruach HaKodesh. V'omeres, and she said, Asido imi shateled ben shemoshia es Yisrael. In the future, my mother will give birth to a son who will save Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Vayomer b'yaledchen eso evrios v'gomer, it says, Paro said, when you're midwives and you help the Jewish women give birth, so he talks about the avnoyim, the stones, ma'ay avnoyim, and the Gemara says, what are the stones that are referred to here in the pasuk? Amar Reb Chanan says, Simen Gadol Masr Lehen, Paro gave them a great sign. Amar Lehen, he said to them, B'shosha Koraz Leilit, at the time that they're going to give birth, Yirechosem Mitzdanenos Kavonim. So then the mother, her thighs are going to become cold like stones. That's a way you'll know that it's time for her to give birth. And the Gemara continues, V'istamar kedechsiv, and others say that what does it mean of noyim? It's like it says it's written in the pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. The pasuk says, V'o'ered beis hayotzer v'nei osam v'loch al havnoyim. It says, I went down to the potter's shop and he was doing work al havnoyim on the stones. And we understand as follows, Ma yotzer zeh yorech mikan v'yorech mikan v'sadon be'emtza. Just like when it comes to the potter, he has a thigh on one side and a thigh on the other side, and the block that he is working with is in the middle. Afisha so too by a woman who's giving birth, Yorech mikan v'yorech mikan, a thigh on one side, a thigh on the other side, Vavlad be'emtza, and the child is in the middle. And the Gemara continues in Ben Hu v'amiteno so then Paro said if it's a son, he should be killed. Amar Reb Chanina says, Simen Gadol Masr, and he gave them a great sign. Ben, that if it's a son, how do you know if it's a son? Panav lamata, it's going to be face down. And Bas, if it's a daughter, Panel lamala, so then it's going to be face up. And the Gemara continues, Vatirena hamayaldos eso elokim v'lo asu kasher diber alein v'gomer. So it says that the midwives, they feared God and they did not do as they were instructed. And it uses this term alehen, and the Gemara asks lohen mi boile. It shouldn't say alehen, it should just say lohen kasher diber lohen, like he spoke to them. And the Gemara says alehen is a language that indicates some kind of act of relations. So Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina says, Malamed, the pasuk is teaching us shetavon lidvar aver, that Paro tried to convince them to do the aver with him, to have relations with him, velo nisbu, but they were not convinced. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, "V'tachayeno es hayilodim," they allowed the children to live. Tana was taught, "Lodayin shelo hemiso osan." Not only did they not kill them, "Ela shoyom aspikos lemayim umazon," they even provided them with water and food. And the Gemara continues, "Vatomarna hamiyaldos el Paro kilo kanoshim v'gomer." The midwife said to Paro that the Jewish women that are giving birth are not like other women that give birth. And the pasuk uses the language of chayos, that ki chayos heina. And the Gemara says, "My chayos." What does it mean, chayos? Ilay ma chayos mamish. If it means chayos mamish, which means to say, if it means that the Jewish women, they themselves are midwives, and therefore they're able to give birth without our help at all. So atu chaya milo tzricha chaya achrisi lo luda. That doesn't make sense. Does a midwife not need another midwife to help her give birth? The fact that they're midwives isn't going to mean that they're able to give birth to the children all by themselves. Ella rather, amru lo, they said to him as follows: Umazu kechaya nimshala. This nation, the Jewish people, they're compared to a chaya, to the wild animals. The wild animals are able to give birth without any assistance. And where do we see these comparisons? We see them all through the psukim. For example, it says Yehuda gorarye. It compares Yehuda to a lion. Don Yehuda nachash. Done to a serpent, to a snake. Naphtali ayala shlucha, Yisachar chamor gorem, Yosef b'chor shor, Binyamin zev yitraf. All of these, it has some kind of animal that connects to the shvatim. And the Gemara continues, D'chsibbe ksibbe. Now, if there's a specific animal that's written by the Shevet, so that's the obvious association. Udelo ksibbe, and even the Shvatim where there's no animal mentioned, but ksiv, but there is a general pasuk, and this pasuk is from Yechezkel. The pasuk says, Ma imcha levia ben arayos, Ravatz, it's talking about all of them. It's talking about Klal Yisrael in general, and it compares again to the lion. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says, Vayhi ki yoru hamiyaldos eso elokim vayas lehem batim. It says, because the miyaldos, the midwives, feared God, so he made for them houses. What does that mean? Rav Shmuel, that's a machlokas, Rav and Shmuel. Chad Omar Bote Kuhuno Levia. One says that the houses refer to the fact that from them would come houses of Kohanim and Leviim. The Chad Omar Bote Malchus. And the other one says it refers to houses of kingship. And the Gemara says, Man Damar Bote Kuhuno Levia, the one who says the houses of Kohuna and Levia, Aaron and Moshe, that's a reference to Aaron and Moshe, Aaron being a Kohen, Moshe being a Levi. Uman Damar Bote Malchus, and the one who says it refers to houses of kingship, David Nami mi Miriam Kaasi. So David HaMelech also came from Miriam, and so that's how it was that the kingdom came through them. T'chsiv, as the pasuk says, Vatomas Azuva vayikach lo kalev es Ephras vateled lo eschur. And Rashi explains the pasuk, Vatamas Azuva Eishes Kalev Hi Miriam. This Azuva who died, that refers to Miriam. Well, the Kamon Mefarish Lama Nikra Shema Azuva. Later we'll explain why she's called Azuva. V'hai Vatamas, and when it says in the pasuk Vatamas, it doesn't actually mean she died. It actually means Shenitztar. It actually means that she got Saras. And then the pasuk goes on to say, "Vayikach lo Kalev es Ephras." Then it says, "Kalev took Ephras as a wife." La'achar shenisrapis. That's actually the same woman. That's Miriam again. And now she got better. She healed. Chazar lekachalo. He went and he married her. Alma Ephras kari Miriam. The whole point of bringing this is to show that Ephras, that's a reference to Miriam. Uchsib b'David ben Ish Ephrasi. We'll see in the pasuk that the Gemara is going to bring that it says by David ben Ish Ephrasi, and so you see that David came from Miriam. Uchsiv, again the Gemara continues and the pasuk says v'David ben Ish Ephrasi v'Gomer. It says David ben Ish Ephrasi, and so therefore you say that David does descend from Miriam. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The pasuk says v'Kalev ben Chetzron holid es Azuva Isha. This pasuk is from Divrei Hayamim, and the pasuk says Kalev ben Chetzron, he gave birth to Azuva Isha ve'es Yerios and Yerios ve'ela Bonan. These are the names of her children, Yesher v'Shova v'Yardon. And the Gemara now tries to understand this pasuk. The pasuk began that it was Kalev ben Chetzron, Kalev the son of Chetzron. So the Gemara asks, Ben Chetzron, was he the son of Chetzron? Ben Yefuna, who Kalev was actually the son of Yefuna. And the Gemara says, no, Ben Shepona me'atzas meraglim. When we say Ben Yefuna, that wasn't really his name. It means he was the individual, he was the son that turned away from the atzas meraglim. Kalev didn't join the council of the meraglim. But the Gemara continues, Vakati ben Kenazu, but still, isn't he actually Ben Kenaz? Wasn't Kenaz his father? T'chsiv, like the pasuk says, Vayilkado Asniel ben Kenaz achi Kalev. It says that Asniel ben Kenaz, who was the brother of Kalev. So if Asniel ben Kenaz was the brother of Kalev, so Kalev also, his father was Kenaz. Kenaz. And the Gemara says, no, Amar Rava says, Churgo de Kenaz Have. He wasn't the son of Kenaz, he was actually the stepson of Kenaz, meaning he and Osniel were only brothers through their mother. Rashi says, Churgo de Kenaz ben Ishto shel Kenaz haya Kalev. Kalev was the son of the wife of Kenaz, but he wasn't the son of Kenaz himself. V'nimtza Osniel achiv me'imo. It comes out that Osniel was his brother through the mother's side, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph.